And then it happened. Of course, he knew his time was limited. He did. He knew it because he was scheduled as a master of this planet, and he knew who he was. Now, before you say, well, that's an unusual thing, how could that happen? I'd like to tell you that if you look at history, and you take a look at even the lineage of Buddha, they know who they are when they arrive. Their akash is looked at and tested. This is no different, dear ones, to other masters, and there have been many on the earth. This man knew why he was here. He knew he wouldn't be here long to teach, and he wasn't. You all have the story. You all think you know what happened. Let us just say this. They terminated his teaching. And they put him on the wood. That's what you're going to see here in Italy. He's hanging on the wood. The Jews, they didn't want any part of him. He was too rebellious. He was a wicked priest. And the conquerors of the day, the Romans, the Italians, they put him on the wood. Too much trouble. He was stirring things up. And to make it even grander from their standpoint, they didn't tie him to the wood like they did those around him. They nailed him to it, as if to say, don't make waves. Look here. This is what happens when you make waves. Well, the waves that he made last to this day. And if you could hear him talk, you would hear him say the same thing right now. Listen, God is love. The Creator who gave you what you have inside loves you and knows your name like a son, like a daughter. That's the message of the man. He was taken down and put in a tomb. Now, it's very interesting, dear ones. Don't make anything more of this than this. The protocol of why they removed him had nothing to do with his state of being. It's against the law in Jerusalem to crucify after sundown. That law still exists. And when sundown came, they took him off and put him in the tomb. There were those who were allowed to accompany them and accompany him to the tomb and leave him as they rolled a stone in place. And that is accurate and that is true. And his teaching stopped there. Now, as the story goes, a few days later, they saw the tomb was open. And a little after that, they saw he was alive. He had returned majestically. You know, a God-man would do that. And that's what he became. Now, here's what I want to tell you. Let's look at the reactions and what happens today. What was the reactions there of the Jews? Happy to be rid of him. Even to this day, not acknowledging what really took place of one of their own. And then you have those who have built his church. Look at the irony of the Romans who killed him and where the Vatican is, who built him up. The same culture started in such a beautiful spiritual way to honor him. Now, through the ages, things changed, but I'm not going to talk about that. You're going to see it. But let's talk about what humans have done with the man. What they've decided he was here for, the man. For many, many years, the depiction of everything he did and everything he taught, the depiction, the statue, the symbol, he's on the wood dying. That became untenable a little later. And there were so many protesting that they said, You keep putting him on the wood like he's always suffering and he's always there, but he's alive. So the ones who protested have the wood shown without the man suffering. Today there are over 400 sects of Christianity, all believing a certain way, still trying to figure out what he really meant and what he really said. And the only thing they have in common is that they love him. Because he's the one who gave them the idea, the dispensation of love, something you have today. Let me give you something that's interesting, dear ones. Something you're going to see. This man, this Jesus, the one who said, you're only going to find out the way and the truth and all that is your life if you listen to me, because God is love. He's not judgmental. He doesn't have rules. And look at where it has become today. Because Christianity became a judgmental God with rules. And dear ones, that is what humanity has done. You're going to see it in so many places, accompanied by some of the greatest works of art in the world. But there's something else happening even in the church today. They're starting to move away from a judgmental God, starting to make it more like the man said, starting to actually understand that the purpose of his visit was an example of the love of God instead of coming to do something. There are those who would love the man and feel they have to be saved by him or suffer a little in order to be like him. And then there are those who know something different because he's alive. And they look at him and say, I love you, and I don't even have a prophet. And everything in this great country centers around that occurrence. Dear ones, as you go forth in these days, take a look. With the correct story in front of you, a story of love, you get to see what the ages have done with it. You get to see the rebels within the church. You get to see the popes that weren't so popish. And you get to see the ones who really understood and loved this man and put him in their heart and his family. And to this day continue to understand he was there as a shining example of what I teach